Shalom, everyone. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late today, but the class will be the same amount of time. And for those of you that are watching on YouTube, it doesn't make any difference because you can turn in whenever you want to. So we're learning the Haggadah of Pesach. This is a very central point of the holiday of Passover. There's a lot of unusual things we do in this night. And as we said so many times before, the main feature of this holiday is the commandments. The Jewish people got commandments. They're the first nation and the only religion to have commandments. There's no such thing in any other race or religion or philosophy or science fiction book, whatever, that God actually, the commander, the creator, the superpower, whatever you want to call it, actually has the people do these commandments, sort of like very basically, non-impressive things to do. And we have to do it every day or once a week or once a year. Very important. Commandments, very important. And the reason the commandments are important is because they are the will right now of the commander. When you do it, you are connecting to the commander. God is infinite. God is not related to time. He gave the commandments when he took the Jews out of Egypt, but he just revealed to the Jews who he is, what he is, that God's infinite will is not like ours, that is separate from us. Once we tell our son, go out and take out the garbage, and he takes out the garbage, so he's separate from me. But when God tells us to do a commandment, for instance, say the night of Passover, so we're connecting to him. We're actually, it's like God's arm doing it. We become God's limb. This is explained in the Tanya. In great length, the book, the Tanya, the Chabad book, the Tanya. Okay, so one of the central things of Passover, of course, is not having chametz in your house. You have to get rid of all this leavened bread and cookies and cakes and things like that, and clean your house very well. Make sure that you don't have any of that in anything like that in your house. And you have to eat matzah. Matzah, the commandment to eat matzah is only on the night of Passover. You don't have to eat matzah after that if you don't want to. Anyway, but a really central thing is in the holiday is talking about how God took us out of Egypt. That's called the Haggadah. And like we talked about before, the Haggadah little by little developed a form to it because it was just a commandment to just praise God however you wanted to. You could bring sentences of praising God. And then little by little it took form until it came into, at least the first printed one they had, was something about 1,000 years ago from Amon Gaon. There was a book called Machzor Vitri that was from one of the pupils of Rashi. Rashi lived about 900 years ago. And there were the Gaonim that were before Rashi. Sadia Gaon, that was like 1,000, a little bit more than 1,000 years ago. So they had, it was already in an orderly form. Okay, anyway, this is how it comes down to us. This is the orderly form. It comes down to us. And this is the custom of the Jewish people to say the whole thing. The main features of the Haggadah is that we drink 4 cups of wine, that we eat matzah, three what is called loaves of matzah, 3 matzahs, and we eat bitter herbs, and we talk about going out of Egypt. And here, this is it, okay? So we talked about this last time. We're just going to carry on where we left off. But where did we leave off? So it says, first of all, this is the order of the night. There's 15 things to order the night that we do. The last of them is not really something you do. It's just that God accepts it. So there's 14 things that we do. We make kiddush, then we wash our hands as though for bread, but it's really not for bread. Then we eat the karpas, which is onion or parsley. Some people used to put parsley or whatever. You dip it in water and then you karpas. Then you eat you break the middle matzah. Then you tell the story about going out of Egypt. This is the Haggadah. This is the main thing we're talking about. This is the Magid. Then you wash your hands again. This is what we're going to learn today. Then after that, you wash your hands for bread. you take all the three matzahs, the top one and the bottom one are whole, and the middle one is broken. You broke that for the yachatz. You broke the middle matzah and you took out half of it and hid it away for the afikomen, which you're going to eat in the end. That's the safon. That's the afikomen. Safon, you hid it. And then you make two blessings on the matzah before you eat it. You make hamotzi lechem minoretz, and you make al achilas matzah mitzvah, the commandment of Yom. Then you eat the matzah, and you eat the morer, bitter herbs. Then you put the bitter herbs together with the matzah, and you make korach. And each time you eat the matzah, you drink the cups of wine. The cups of wine are not mentioned here because that's sort of a signposts. You drink a cup of wine over here, and you pour a cup of wine over here right before you say the magid, and you drink the cup of wine before you wash your hands. So here you drink the first cup, here you drink the second cup, here at the magid. Then you eat the meal, shulchan aruch, and you drink the third cup. I'm sorry, tzafon, the shulchan aruch and the tzafon. Here you drink the third cup. That's after you eat the afikomen, and you make the blessing after eating. Right here, make the blessing after eating. That's on the cup of wine. And then on the fourth cup, we say the Hallel and drink the fourth cup of wine, and that's it. Then Nirtza means that God accepts it. We can be sure He accepts it. All right, so we already said, we talked about the God. This year, of course, you make a double kiddush in the nighttime. First of all, you bless on Shabbat, and then after that on the holiday. We did this yesterday. Now the Magid. Now we're talking about going out of Egypt, right? And we talked about this in the morning. Remember, we had a speech from the Lubavitcher Rebbe that we learned this morning. This is the bread of affliction that ate up our avotenu, that ate up our intellect. I'm using the Hasidic explanation. In the land of Egypt, now in the time of exile, and God is saying this. We're just repeating what God is saying. Anyone who wants to come and partake of knowledge and awareness of God, come today, because now we're here. Next year, and it was immediately, we're going to be in the land of Israel. Israel, we said, means that wants to do the will of the Creator, learning Torah. Yisrael, Ara means the will, and Yisrael is Yeshishim Ribos Osis the Torah. We'll want to do God's will according to the Torah. And now we are servants, and next year we will be free from all of the forces that prevent us from serving the Creator of the universe. Remember we said that? So God is saying this. Here, Jews, now you're suffering, you're in exile. I'm taking you out. What are you in exile? What does it mean? Actually, you have money, you have that army, you have everything, but you haven't got connection to God. You're not aware of the Creator of the universe. That's the biggest poverty of all. So God is saying, tonight is the night that I'm offering you to take you out of all of your limitations, feed you the food of faith, connect you to true freedom, and truly be in the land of Israel, namely, but wanting to do God's will according to the Torah. Okay, remember we said that. So this is, God is inviting us tonight. In general, the Rebbe explains that the whole night of Passover, this whole Seder, is talking about the future redemption. It's talking about the future redemption. And then we say, what's this different from other nights? On all the other nights, we don't dip at all. This night we dip twice. On all the other nights, we eat chametz or matzah, not only matzah. And the reason we start off with dipping in Chabad we do is because that's a custom. And customs are very, very important, very essential to Judaism, are the customs. what we do with our free time, with our free will, things that even though we're not commanded to, nevertheless we want to come closer and closer to God. All the other nights we eat chametz or matzah. This night we eat matzah, as we learned in the morning mimer. Remember, matzah is the food of faith, humility. Tonight we get humility. We get down to the truth. And other nights we can eat only vegetables. Tonight we are consuming the moror. Moror is the gematria, numerical value. Moror is the numerical value of death. Tonight we finish off with death. No more death, no more negativity. If we would only accept the blessings that God is giving us tonight. Because tonight we're sitting upright, but tonight, usually we sit upright, but tonight everyone reclines. Reclining is showing like true rest from fighting battles, true revelation of the creator of the universe. That's what it means, reclining. Here's a story. Once there was Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Tarfon. 5 rabbis. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Tarfon. And all these rabbis were eating in Bnei Brak. And they were talking about going out of Egypt the whole entire night. They tell us that before the Haggadah was written down, so you would just tell as much as you could relate as much as you could about going out of Egypt. Now, when the Haggadah is written down, it doesn't mean come to limit us. It's coming to tell us the minimum, we should say. If you want to say more, of course, that's wonderful, about how good God is, how God takes us out of our problems, etc. Stories of tzaddikim. Anyway, the whole entire night, until their pupils came and they say, rabbis, it's the time of Kriyat Shema in the morning. And the Rebbe explains that what it means is that these great rabbis, no matter how high and aware of God they got, the more they were aware of how much they have to go, of how much they're lacking, right? A person that's a total ignoramus, as he thinks he knows everything, but as soon as he starts to know something, suddenly he realizes, well, maybe there's a little bit more to know. And the more he knows, the more he realizes he doesn't know. But he said the pupils came and they said, rabbis, maybe you feel that you yourself have not accomplished anything, that you still have a lot to do, but you've opened up our eyes. The pupils say, time of Shachris, morning, Shema. In the morning, the Shema means understanding. Understanding, you have enlightened us with your understanding, right? So you can stop telling about the going out of Egypt the whole entire night. So Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, I am like 70 years old, and I never merited to say going out of Egypt in the nighttime until Ben Zoma. When we talked about this, the Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, really, he was, according to some opinions, 17, according to others, 18, according to the 13 years old. And anyway, he wanted that to say Shema Yisrael, means in the third chapter of Shema Yisrael is talking about tzitzit, and it ends up, I am God who took you out of Egypt. And he wanted that this should be said in the nighttime. And he never merited to have the law like him. Now, what this means basically is that saying Shema means, like we said before, understanding God, here, enlightening. And he wanted it to be said in the nighttime, and others, even at the time of exile, that we should bring this godliness even at the nighttime. And he didn't merit to say it until came Ben Zoma, Shimon ben Zoma. He was one of the 4 that went into the secrets of the Torah. Rabbi Akiva was also one of them. And he didn't come out so good. And he came, Ben Zoma said, Laman Tizkor, you have to remember the day you left Egypt, all the days of your life. And it says the days of your life, you have to remember it. Days implies daytime. Kol Yamei, all of the days means even the nighttime. And now Ben Zoma said, he explained it, and the law became like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the day that he was elected to be the head of the Sanhedrin. There was a whole big argument between what is Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, and they finally, in the end, they evicted Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. And they appointed Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah in his place, and he looked too young, so suddenly he became old. He looked old. And it says that he got all the years of of the prophet Samuel, the Navi. He got those years because he himself was 18 and Samuel had 52 years. Anyway, how was the Rebbe? Remember we learned the sikh about that each one of us is a incarnation of someone, and all the good deeds that were done by that previous incarnation of ours, they're eternal, because good things are eternal, bad things go away. So anyway, so he said, with this merit that now I am the head, as now we have the power to say Shema in the nighttime. And the rabbis said, the days of, call the days of your life, how did they interpret this? They knew about this sentence, but they said, call you the Mechayecha, and Yomei Chayecha, that's the days, and call Yomei Chayecha, that we should say not in the nighttime, but in the coming of the Moshiach. Some people say that they agreed with him, you should say also in the nighttime, and they added on also in the days of the Moshiach. There's two different opinions what exactly they meant by this, but the Rebbe made a big thing of this, and he said that it implies, let's take a little bit sort of out of the context that it's in here, all the days of your life you should devote to Lavi, to bring to the days of the Mashiach. And they said all the days means all of your time and all of your energy should only be to bring Mashiach. That's what the Rebbe said. Shalom. Here we go further into the Hagadda. 4 blessings. Remember, blessed is God, blessed is He, blessed that gave His Torah to the Jewish people, blessed is He. 4 sons. These are 4 blessings for the 4 sons. The wise son, the evil son, the simple son, and the son that doesn't even know how to ask any questions. And each one asks a question. What does he say? Let's go to maybe we go to English. Let's go to English. We have English cop. Somebody probably invested energy and in order to do this. So let's not ignore it. The wise, there's 4 sons. 4 sons. One is wise, one is wicked, one is simple, the other one doesn't know how to ask. The wise one, what does he say? What are these testimonies, statutes, and laws which the Lord, our God, he says, our God, has commanded you? And the Rebbe explains what is this, because he's a wise son, so he's connected to God. And he's saying, fellows, listen, you want to be connected to God, you don't need all these commandments. Right? He's wise son in a way of, because if not, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if he's a wise son, so what's he asking? What are these testimonies and questions? If he doesn't know that, then he's not very wise, is he? He doesn't know the laws of Passover. So the Rebbe says, what does it mean? Is that he's saying, listen, maybe these things are for you. God commanded you, but really you don't need them. If you're on my level of wisdom, then you can just be aware of God all the time. So it says, no, you have to tell them the laws of Passover. Don't eat anything after the Pesach lamb. What type of a weird answer is that? So the Rebbe says very simple. The Rebbe said the revelations that the Jewish people got when they left Egypt of the essence of God came as a result of the commandments that they did. By keeping all the commandments to the last detail, even this very last detail of the meal of Passover, right, was after you eat the Pesach lamb, which that's the last thing you eat. Nowadays we eat the afikomen in the place of the Pesach lamb. That's the last thing we eat also. After the Pesach lamb, you're not allowed to eat anything. What's that got to do with anything? It's God's will. That's what God said. And after the Jews did exactly what God said, and they didn't, to the last little detail of not eating anything after the last morsel that they eat in the night of the Seder, namely the Pesach lamb or goat, whatever they ate, is after that, only by means of keeping every detail to the last detail, then there was the big revelation of God that took them out of Egypt. So you have to do the commandments. What about the wicked son? He said, what is the service to you? And he says, to you, but not to him. So he's excluding himself from everybody else. So what do you say? You blunt his teeth. And you say to him, because what does it mean, blunt his teeth? He wants to make me into a fool, I'll make him into a fool. That's blunting his teeth implies that he's trying to say that my work is for nothing. I'm telling you, what he thinks is a big waste of time. It's because of this that God did for me. I left Egypt, but not for you. If you would have been there, you would not have been redeemed. If you would have been in Egypt, you wouldn't have been redeemed. So the Rebbe asked a question. Remember, we learned this. What are you telling the evil son? If you would have been there, you wouldn't. In other words, you're telling the evil son he hasn't really got a place in the meal. What do we invite them for? It says that there's 4 sons that are supposed to be in the meal. So we're telling them that, listen, the fact is, you don't even belong here. If you were back there in Egypt, you would have died in the darkness. So the Rebbe said, no, that's not the point. We're trying to say, listen, my friend, you do belong here. If you would have been in Egypt, you would have died in the darkness, because that's before the Torah was given. But now the Torah was given, and the Torah said we have to make this meal, and therefore you have a place here like everybody else. And you should know that, in fact, you become remember the Rebbe said, really the main feature of this, the star of the Seder Pesach, is the evil son. He corresponds to the second cup, and the second cup is the one that's on the table when you say the whole Hagadda. And this is the main feature, because the future redemption is when the future redemption implies that all of the Jewish people, every single one, even Jews that don't even know that they're Jews, as soon as they discover they're Jews, then they all turn around. And the evil son, we have to devote time and energy to him and love to him to make him just realize who he is. He's a Jew. That says, if you were back then in Egypt, you wouldn't have gotten redeemed, because that was before the Torah was given. But when God gave the Torah, so every single Jew became holy. Okay, well, then there's the simple son and the one that doesn't have to ask, that you have to encourage him to ask, etc. Let's go to the next. 4 sons. Here we go. You might think that the night of Passover we should make on the first day of this month of Nisan, because it says Bayom Ahu. I'm sorry. Rosh Chodesh, you might think it's at the beginning of you might think it's on Rosh Chodesh, because it says a Chodesh is Elochem. This month is yours. You might think that you have to make it. It says no, it says Bayom Ahu. It says you have to make the Seder Passover on the same night that the Jews got out of Egypt, on that night. In fact, it doesn't say that night, on that day. Maybe you should make it in the daytime. So there it says Ba'avur Zeh, because of this. What does it mean, Zeh? Only when there is matzah and moror in front of you, and everyone agrees that the matzah and moror is only eaten in the nighttime. The Pesach offering, the lamb or the goat, paschal lamb that was eaten at the end of the meal, that was sacrificed in the daytime, but it was eaten in the night. So the eating, so therefore it says Ba'avur Zeh, when we eat matzah and moror, that's the time when we talk about going out of Egypt. And now we're starting out with bad things. Bad things. In the beginning, of the Avodah Zarah, Yoavotenu, our forefathers were idolaters. But now, Kirvanu, God made us come close. He brought us close to his service. So it says in the Gemara that you have to start out with bad things. And this is the bad things. There's different opinions what it means, bad things. But this is the one bad thing. Avadim, that we were servants, we did idolatry. This is before Abraham. Here it says Terach. Terach was the father of Abram. It was the father of Nahor. Nahor was Abraham's brother. And they worshipped idols. Terach, the father of Abraham, worshipped idols. So what do we have to tell our forefathers? So the Rebbe says, if you remember, the Rebbe said, this is a speech that the Rebbe made. We learned it here. Look back a few days ago. A speech the Rebbe said was in 1957. He said that there's a 5th son. There's 4 sons, but there's really a 5th son. There's 4 sons that are mentioned in the Torah, and there's a 5th son. Who's the 5th son? The son that's not even here. He doesn't even know that he's Jewish. He wants nothing to do with Judaism. Either he doesn't know he's Jewish or he doesn't care about Judaism. He's against it. Doesn't want to come. He says, this is what we're saying, that in the beginning, our forefathers were idolaters. That's talking about that son also, the one that was before Abraham. He doesn't even recognize Abraham. Why is he here to say bad things about him? No, that he should also be part of the Hagadda. He's also included in the going out of Egypt, the future redemption, because the whole Hagadda we're talking about, according to Lubavitcher Rebbe, this is talking about the future redemption. In the beginning, idolaters were our servant. Now God made us come close to him. Like it says, Yehoshua said to all the people, Joshua, the servant the one who took the Jews into Egypt, and the one who took the Jews into Israel from the desert. Joshua said to all the people, Ko Amar Hashem, this is what God said, the God of Israel. On the other side of the river your fathers lived. Terach, the father of Abraham, and the father of Nahor, and Terach and all of his friends and his compatriots, and there was Abraham's father, and all of his relatives, they all worshipped idols. And God said, I took your father Abraham from the other side of the river, and I brought him to the land. That's why we're called Ivri, the word Hebrew. Ivri means Aver, from the other side of the river. It also means that Abraham was alone. He was on one side of the river and everybody else was on the other side. The whole world was against him. I gave Abraham the land of Canaan, and I increased his seed, and I gave him Yitzchak. When did he increase his seed? What time? By giving him Yitzchak. It was only one son. And Yitzchak had also one son. They had two sons, but Yitzchak and Yaakov were the main ones. Yaakov and Esav. And I gave Esav what's called the mountain of Seir to inherit it. Some say that's Rome or whatever. And Yaakov and his sons, they went down into Egypt. Egypt. Not very good pictures here, huh? Very sort of, don't know if it would pass the Rorschach test. I guess in the book it must be look different, but here it doesn't really look. And you have to figure, what do you think when you see this picture? Anyway, I don't know. I guess it's supposed to be Abraham. Oh. These are sheep, huh? Sheep. Yes. And this is
people.
Okay. Anyway, write an essay on this topic. Make a contest or something. Okay. Obviously, this was the pictures were probably pretty nice, but somehow or other it didn't come across in the. Maybe it did. This is just what we just finished saying. Blessed is the one who kept his promise to the Jewish people. Blessed is the one, blessed be he, that God reckoned the end to take the Jews out of Egypt. So it says really the Jews were supposed to be in Egypt for 400 years, but God considered the Kates. Kates is the numerical value. Let's look at the pointer over here. Kates is the numerical value of 190. So if you subtract 190 from 400, you get 210. So God took away 190 years of the time when he said that the Jewish people were going to be in exile. So they were only there for 210 years. In any case, God said to Abraham in the covenant between the pieces, it says like this, Vayomer Avram, God said to Avram, Yodea Teda, you should know, Yodoa Teda, you should know. God announced to Abraham that you are the father of a new people, and your people are going to inherit the land of Israel, and your people are going to be my servants and my children. But beforehand, you should know that your children are going to be Be'eretz Lo Lahem, in a land that's not theirs. And the Rebbe explains the Eretz Lo Lahem, that they're not in the land for their own benefit. They're in the land in order to benefit the whole world. And the Ivdum, and they're going to become slaves. The Inu Otam, and the Egyptians will make them suffer, torture them 400 years. But we see that they weren't there for 400 years. They were only there for 210 years. So it says God is Cheshevet Kates. He removed. Other explanations, Rashi also brings that the 400 years are considered to be from the time that Yitzchak was born. In any case, but that you should know, God says that you're going to be slaves. God is promising Abraham, your offspring are going to be slaves. But the nation that will enslave them, Dan Anochi, I'll judge them. Egypt will receive these plagues. I mean, the Egyptians received plagues. They weren't exactly innocent people, right? They made the Jews suffer terribly. And afterward, the Jews will go out with a tremendous riches. And then after that, we lift up the cup and we sing a Chabad song, or you can sing whatever you song. Well, the song is also in other melodies also. That's not the Chabad melody. That's the popular. Now the Chabad version. First of all, let me explain what it means. This is what stood for us and our fathers. It says that he is talking about Hey are the 5 books of Moses, Yud are the 10 commandments, and Aleph is the oneness of God. This is what has stood for us and for our fathers and us. That not only one person, not only Paro, stood over us to destroy us, but every generation, there's always those who stand on the Jewish people to destroy us. But God saves us from their hands. Don't think it's our army. We had to have, army is good, nothing against the army. Should be an army, but don't think that it's our army that wins the battles. It never was. The Jewish people always had an army, at least when they had Israel. But the army was not one. And as soon as they thought that the army was what won the battles, then they lapsed into, how do you say, idolatry and other things. Okay, so it says God is the one that is saving us from their hands. Not only that, I mean, just very simply, 2,000 years, the Jews have wandered around since the second temple was destroyed. We didn't have an army, and everybody hated us, and they kicked us out of all places, and they wanted to destroy us. And the Jews themselves wanted to destroy themselves. That's the last 300 years or whatever. And nevertheless, here we are. We're still Jewish people, and we're still sitting around the table, and not just surviving, but you say flourishing Jewish people and Judaism. Sable made you should learn go on the Chabad melody. Amar aleinu lechalotenu ela shebechol dor v'dor omdim aleinu lechalotenu v'hakadosh baruch hu matzilenu miyadam ela shebechol dor v'dor omdim aleinu lechalosenu ela shebechol dor v'dor Oimdim aleinu lechaloseinu, oimdim aleinu lechaloseinu, v'hakadosh baruch hu matzilenu miyadam, v'hakadosh baruch hu matzilenu miyadam. Tevel Omad, go and learn what Lavan Ha'arami wanted to do to Yaakov Avinu. What did Lavan? Lavan had the 2 daughters, right? And Yaakov wanted to marry his 2 daughters, and Lavan tricked him for 20 years. He made him work for the sheep, and he made him work, and finally, Lavan essentially wanted to destroy him. Paro Lokas are all the Zachor, and Paro only wanted to kill the males. But Lavan bikesh lakor atakol. And Lavan wanted to destroy everything. When Yaakov ran away, so Lavan ran after him with all of his men. He could have killed him. And God appeared to Lavan and told him, don't do it. Shneimar, like it says, Arami Oved Avi. And Arami destroyed my father and other. But anyway, we went down to Egypt. Yaakov went down to Egypt, and he lived there with very few people, and he became a great nation. By Yerid Mitzrayim, that now here we go. Now we're starting the exile. They went down to Egypt, Anus al Pia Dibur, forced by God. But a Dibur is another name for God. A Makom is another name for God. The Hagibur is another name for God. There's all different, like in English, the Almighty, the okay. Al Pia Dibur. But God commanded us to go down to Egypt. We had to be there against our will. But Yogar Sham, and we dwelled there. So, like it says here, Arami Oved Avi, V'Yered Mitzrayim, V'Yogar Sham, V'Mesemad, V'Yisham L'Goy Gadol, Atzum V'Rab. And now we're beginning to interpret these different sentences and explain these sentences according to the Torah. Now, this is part of the what's called the statement that we make when the Jews will make later on. This comes from the Torah. From where is this? Comes from the Torah, from the Jews said when they brought their bikurim, their first fruits. When the Jews got into the land of Israel and the temple was built, so they would bring the first fruits and they would make this statement. Here, just one, excuse me, one moment. Here we go. All right. Yes. All right. So it says, there was an army that tried to destroy my people. And we dwelled there. We were very few, and we became a great nation. By Yered Mitzrayim, the Jewish people went down to Egypt, forced by God. We dwelled there. What does it mean? That Yaakov Avinu did not intend to stay in Egypt, but just to be there temporarily. Like it says, V'yomer ol Paro, l'gur b'aretz banu. We came to just to be here temporarily, because we don't have any sheep, any food for our sheep. Remember, there was a big famine in the whole world. He didn't know that Yaakov didn't know that Yosef also had been sent to Egypt and now ruled over Egypt. His brothers wanted to kill him, but he became a king. The hunger is very strong in the land of Canaan, really in the whole world. And now we're coming to the land of Goshen. The Jewish people went down there on very good terms. And afterwards, things went really sour. The Jews were very, very few. Like it says, how many Jews went into Egypt with Yaakov? With Yaakov together, there were 70. Our fathers went down. And now God made us like the stars of the heaven for the multitude. And we became a great nation. The Jewish people who became a great nation means that they retained their identity. They didn't melt in with the Egyptians. Like it says, Gadol v'atzum, great and powerful, like it says, Bnei Yisrael poru v'yishrutzu v'yirbu v'yatzmu b'mod mod. The Jews became very, very fruitful and multitudinous. And then the next sentence says, and the more that the Egyptians made them suffer, the more they were successful, the more children they had. Rav, like it says, v'yavor alayich v'erech b'osayis b'damayich v'omer alach b'damayich chayiv v'omer lach. What does it mean that you were in your blood? It says when the Jewish people went out of Egypt, so they had two bloods that took them out of Egypt. It says that 3 million Jews got out of Egypt. There were 600,000 just males from the age of 20 up. Some people say from 20 to 50, 20 to 60. In any case, let's say it's 20 up, and that's not counting all the children, which I imagine there was an equal number of children, and not counting all of the women. It's probably an equal number of women, maybe even more. So there was like 3 million people that got out, and it says that there was only 1/5 of the Jews left. So that means there was like 15 million Jews altogether. However it works out. And the Jews, when they left, they had to circumcise themselves, and then afterwards they could eat from the Pesach offering, because an uncircumcised person can't eat from the Pesach offering. So there's two types of blood: the blood of the circumcision and the blood of the Korban Pesach, the Mayach. So they were multitudinous, and they had Ravava Katzemach Hasadeh. One second. Multitudinous, like it is the foliage on the field, and I have made you now Jewish people. Here it says, increased, you grew, you became very beautiful, your bosom fashioned, and your hair growed long, but you were naked and bare. What does it mean, naked and bare? The Jewish people didn't have any commandments. They were multitudinous, but they didn't have any commandments. So God gave them these commandments of the Pesach offering and of circumcision, and also of eating matzah and eating the bitter herbs, and all these commandments that they did. This gave them the merits. Okay, but that's how they got out. Meanwhile, before they got out, Vayiru otanu Mitzrayim, the Egyptians made us suffer. V'yanun, and they tortured us. V'yitnu aleinu avodah kasha, and they gave us hard work. V'yareu otanu Mitzrayim, that the Egyptians did us bad. 1 second. Yes, okay. Like it says, the Egyptians, this is how the book of Exodus begins, that the Jewish people became very multitudinous in Egypt, and the king started worrying. And he started thinking, listen, now the Jews are serving us and they're okay, and they're all our servants, and they can't lift up their heads. But maybe if some nation attacks us, that we'll have to turn our attention to this other nation. Maybe the Jews will join the other nation. But nosaf al seneno, they'll add on to our enemies, say the Egyptians. Maybe they'll add on to our enemies. And these Jews will fight against us, and they'll leave the land of Egypt. Right? Why would he think a thing like that? I mean, they'd only been torturing them for 210 years. But nevertheless, they were afraid that the Jews might not look at that with a kind eye, the fact that they've been tortured for 210 years. The Yanunu, like it says that the Egyptians made us suffer. Now, this is just explaining these 4 sentences, which are said when the Jewish people later on bring the firstborn, the first fruit offerings. The Jews say how amazing God is that he took us out of Egypt, that we were suffering over there, etc. And we were suffering, like it says, Vayasimu olav sari misim, that the Egyptians put over them taskmasters, laman anoto, in order to torture them even more in their hard work. Vayivan are miskanot, and they built all these cities for Paro, Pitom, Ramses, other cities they built. Vayidnu alinu avodah kasha, and the Egyptians gave us hard work, like it says, Vayavdu Mitzrayim et bnei Yisrael b'forach. B'forach, it says also b'peh rach. They said to the Jews, do a little bit of work, we'll give you good pay, and you'll have a short day and long, big wages. And it ended up that they just kept adding on more time and taking away more wages until finally they were working all day and getting absolutely nothing for it. Vayamoru et chayim, they made us bitter in this hard work, b'chomer bilvenim, with cement and bricks and all of the work in the field. So the Rebbe said, just like the Jews got out of Egypt because of that hard work, we have to go out of Egypt now, our limitations by means of our hard work. In Chomer is kol v'chomer, and bilvenim is libun hilchasa, by learning the Torah. Learning the Torah also is very difficult sometimes to understand, to work on. And that's going to be our hard work that'll take us out. Vanitzak el Hashem, we cried out to God, and God heard our voice, and God saw our suffering and our hard work and our pressure. Now we'll explain. We cried out to God, the God of our fathers, like it says, Vayibi Yamim Ha'im, Arabi Ma'im, like it was in those, after so many days, Vayamot Melech Mitzrayim, the king of Egypt died, Vayanchu ben Israel, and then the troubles of the tribe, the king that knew, and I gave honor to Yosef, that Yosef saved the world, right? Yosef saved the world. The world was a famine. Yosef gave Paro this amazing advice to save the world, to store up wheat. But that Paro died, and some people say just changed his mind. In any case, they started making the Jewish people suffer, and the Jewish people screamed out to God, and their cries went to God from the service. Like it says, Vayishma Hashem et cholenu, God heard our voice. Like it says, Vayishma Elokim et nakatam, he heard the moaning of the Jews. Vayizkor Elokim et brito, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he saw our torture. This is precious derech eretz, that God made us, that the Egyptians separated the families See how they translate it in English. Like it says, Vayar Elokim at Bnei Yisrael, Vayeda Elokim, and God knew. And Amalenu, it says that he gave us hard work. These are the sons. Like it says, Kol Bena Yalud, Yaror Achishtu. It says all of the male sons, throw them into the river. Now, this is a very difficult thing for a person to give birth to children and have them thrown into the. He says, our suffering is separating a husband and wife. They tried to do everything, even though they wanted as many Jews as they could to make them slaves, but it got out of hand. There were too many. And they started worrying that, listen, we can't control all these Jews. And not only that, you can see that the Jews are really not giving themselves totally to be slaves. We see that there's a little twinkling in their eye over there, that they're still, after 4 generations, you figure that they would get used to being slaves and that they would not want to be free. And we see that they still do want to be free. So maybe too many children. And then Paro, one of Paro's soothsayers, came to him and said, a young child will be born and he will depose you, Paro. So it didn't really say it was a Jewish child or not. So Paro killed all the males, even the Egyptian males, killed them all. That's a very difficult thing for a parent to see his children taken from him and kill him. Like it says, every boy that's born, you should throw him into the river. And every girl, you should let live. And the Rebbe explained it doesn't mean let live. It means that you should make them live like we live, like the Egyptians live. Et lachatzenu, our trouble, this is the dachak, that the tremendous pressure that the Egyptians put on us. Like it says, I saw the pressure that the Egyptians were pressuring you. And this is where we're going to come back tomorrow. So, but this to end on a good note. And God took us out of Egypt with a powerful hand, right? So now this is the third of the 4th sentences that we say when they bring the first fruits later on, and we'll explain all of them on this night, the amazing miracles and tremendous gratitude we should have for the Creator for doing these things. But we have to understand that all these things are going to be done again, but in a much bigger and more impressive way than they were back then. Have a good day with Moshiach. Now, God willing, 8:15, we will learn Chassidut tomorrow, and at 3 o'clock tomorrow, God willing, we'll finish this. Shalom uvracha. Tomorrow night, by the way, is checking for chametz. So anybody's want to know about that, we'll talk about that a little bit. Shalom. See you tomorrow.